Hey viewers and friends and horror fans, the month of October has now finished for me and I'm here to upload a video showing you guys the horror movies that I've watched over the past month. So my aim was 31. I didn't quite make it. I ended up getting 26 horror movies viewed over the past month. Pretty good effort, and I watched a lot of movies that I'd never seen before, which was one of my goals. So pretty happy with that. And for the most part, I had a pretty good month. There was probably only maybe 3 or 4 movies that I didn't really enjoy too much, but the rest of them I enjoyed a lot. So we're going to take a look at what I viewed in the past month right now. Alright, so I've created a bit of a Halloween / horror themed backdrop, and I'm just going to show you guys the movies that I've watched over the past 31 days of October. 26 movies in total. Not going to spend too much time talking about each of the movies. I'll just give a quick opinion on them and then an overall score out of 5. We're going to start with the first movie that I watched for the month and work my way down to the last film that I watched at the end of the month. So the first film is Martyrs. Not a film that I'd watch over and over, but it certainly was an experience, and as an overall rating I give Martyrs a 3 out of 5. Next up we have Wrong Turn, which is a modern hillbilly slasher flick. This was actually my first time watching this movie and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to give this one a 3.5 out of 5. Next up we have The Stuff. This was another first time viewing and I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I was overly amazed by it. I pretty much got what I expected out of the movie, and as an overall score I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Next up we have Dream Home, which is an Asian slasher movie, and what an amazing movie this is, especially in the terms of kills. Absolutely love it. I gave it a review score of 3.5 out of 5, but since the review, thinking about the film a bit more, I'm going to bump my score up to a 4 out of 5. I absolutely loved this one. Next we have Hell, which is a really good sort of survival horror post-apocalyptic film. Definitely recommend this one, especially if you're a fan of those sort of movies, and as an overall score I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Next we have Blood Runs Cold. This was a very underwhelming slasher, unfortunately. That was a blind buy for me and it didn't quite pay off. As an overall score I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5. Brilliant cinematography, but unfortunately that was pretty much the only thing going for this movie. Next up we have Colin, the zombie film that got made for $70. This was terrible. I hated it. I'm going to give it a score of 1 out of 5, and this is definitely the worst movie that I've watched over the past month. Next up we have High Lane, a French slasher movie with a difference. I really enjoyed this one a lot. That was a lot better than I expected, and I definitely recommend this one to slasher fans. My overall score is 3 out of 5. Next we have Confessions, a Asian film. This isn't a traditional horror, but it's definitely got horror elements, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant. So if you've never heard of it before, definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of Asian cinema. I highly recommend it. Wonderfully done story, really, really good, and I give it a 3 out of 5. Next we have The Funhouse. Unfortunately, the second half of the movie let it down a little bit for me, but I loved the intro and I loved the first half of the film. I think on repeated viewings I'm going to get a lot more out of this movie, hence why I decided to pick up the Blu-ray edition. As an overall score, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5, but I'm hoping that changes in the future. Next we have House on Sorority Row, classic slasher from the 80s, first time viewing, and I have no idea why it's taken me so long to get around to watching it. I loved it, thought it was brilliant. The best thing about this movie in my opinion are the characters. Great characters for an 80s slasher film, so The House on Sorority Row gets a 3 out of 5 from me. Next we have the Amityville Horror remake. Not a fan of the original, but I loved this remake. I thought it was absolutely brilliant and tops the original in every way in my opinion. Overall score 3.5 out of 5. Next we have Invitation Only, another Asian slasher movie. I was pleasantly surprised by this one, thoroughly enjoyed it. 3 out of 5. Definitely recommend it. Next we have The Clinic, which is an Australian horror movie. Picked this one up knowing pretty much nothing about it apart from the synopsis that I read on the back, and easily one of my best blind buys that I've ever picked up. Loved it. 4 out of 5 for me. Definitely comes highly recommended. Next we have Detention, parody, comedy, slasher thing. I really didn't like it at all. 1 out of 5. Next we have The Midnight Meat Train. I had really high expectations for the movie and it started out really good. I did enjoy the storyline, but the CGI kills were disgusting. They looked absolutely shit. And I didn't like the ending at all. So Midnight Meat Train gets a 2 out of 5 from me. Probably my biggest disappointment of the month actually. Next we have Alone in the Dark. This was another first time viewing and it's taken me ages to get around to watching it. So glad I checked it out. This is a fantastic slasher, I guess you'd call it a slasher from the 80s with Donald Pleasence. Highly recommended if you've never seen it before. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Another pretty fun slasher, Humongous. I wasn't really too sure what to expect and I really enjoyed this one. I came away pretty satisfied. Overall score for Humongous is a 3 out of 5. Next up we have Killer Party, first time viewing and I absolutely loved it. This movie is amazing. I highly recommend it. I've done a separate review on it, but yeah, one of my all-time favorites now. Overall score is a 4 out of 5. Next up we have Visiting Hours. I enjoyed it, but it was nothing like I was expecting it to be, so for an overall score I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Next we have The Burning. It's been quite a while since I've seen this movie and I definitely wanted to revisit it over Halloween. One of my favourite slashers of all time, love it. So 5 out of 5 from me. If you've never checked out this movie before, it's a staple. It's an absolute must for any person wanting to get into the slasher genre or horror fans in general. So The Burning is amazing, 5 out of 5. Another one of my favourites, you guys know what I think of this film, I love it, Hatchet 2, 5 out of 5. Probably the best modern slasher in my opinion. Next we have Dead Snow. I thought this movie was incredible, pretty much perfection. I loved it. I felt they nailed everything they set out to do for this movie. Amazing gore, awesome characters, and the comedy blended in really, really well. I am going to give Dead Snow a 4 out of 5. So highly recommend it. Next we have Them. This is the French version of The Strangers basically. I had really high expectations going into this one, and I've got to say I was pretty disappointed. It's not a bad film by any means, but I didn't think it was amazing like most people do, and I certainly prefer The Strangers over this one. Not really going to go too in depth on why and stuff like that, but for an overall score I'm going to give Them a 2.5 out of 5. And the last two, which were viewed on Halloween, we have Trick or Treat. This is an amazing horror anthology, and I hadn't seen this film in a good 2 years, and I forgot how much I love it. I actually gave it 2 viewings, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then I checked out the Halloween documentary, which was amazing by the way. I'm going to give Trick or Treat a 4.5 out of 5. This is an absolute must and the best Halloween themed movie ever made in my opinion. Loved it. My 2 favourite stories were the school bus and then the one at the end with the old man getting terrorised by Sam. I enjoyed the school teacher one. I didn't really care for the whole like werewolf female story, but yeah, Trick or Treat, loved it. And last, certainly not least, had to watch Halloween. I was actually going to give this one a miss this year and watch something else, but I couldn't do it. I had to watch Halloween. You guys know my opinions on this movie. 5 out of 5 from me. Absolute masterpiece. Alright, so they are the 26 movies that I watched over the past month. And yeah, for the most part, I really enjoyed all the movies that I watched. I'm pretty pleased that I knocked off quite a lot of my unwatched backlog from my collection, which was one of my aims. So pretty pleased about that. I'm feeling completely burnt out in terms of horror movies, so it's going to be good to have a bit of a break from horror. And I'm feeling a little bit burnt out with YouTube in general, kind of a bit over it. I'm actually going away next week for a week and a half, so this will be my last video for a couple of weeks. I'm really needing a break, guys. I've uploaded quite a lot of videos over the past month, and yeah, I'm feeling a little bit over it. So I'm not leaving or anything, and I will be making videos when I return in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, it's going to be certainly a well-needed break from YouTube in terms of videos from me. So yeah, anyway, I hope everyone has had a fantastic Halloween month of October, and I've really enjoyed it and had a lot of fun watching a lot of horror movies, even though I'm pretty burnt out with the genre at the moment. Anyway, that has been my video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks a lot for watching.